The term Dark Ages conjures images of chaos and ignorance after Rome's fall, 1,000 years of lost progress. This dramatic story has shaped our imagination, but it's a myth more than fact. The early Middle Ages were not a void but a time of profound transformation. New societies, languages and laws emerged from Rome's ruins. While some knowledge was lost, much was preserved and new ideas flourished. To call this era dark is to overlook the foundations of modern Europe being laid. Power shifted from emperors to local kings and bishops, creating new forms of community and governance. Life was hard, but not without meaning or structure. We must look past the myths and see this period as a crucial bridge between ancient and modern worlds. It was an age of movement, conflict and creation, not stasis. The collapse of Rome sparked the rise of many new civilizations. Let's set aside the narrative of decline and explore the real story. How Europe remade itself. We'll examine why the Dark Ages label persists and why it's misleading. From preserved texts to new technologies and kingdoms, this era was about adaptation and survival. This is the story of how the modern world began to take shape. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was a slow collapse, not a single event. By the late 5th century, Rome's authority was gone, replaced by a patchwork of competing kingdoms. Groups like the Franks, Goths and Saxons built new societies on Rome's ruins. Power became local lords offered protection in exchange for loyalty, planting the seeds of feudalism. Roman roads decayed, trade collapsed, and cities shrank as life became overwhelmingly rural. Goods once common became rare luxuries. Survival depended on the harvest and local peace. Roman law blended with Germanic customs, creating new legal systems. For most, the world shrank to the village and the local lord. This was a world forced to rebuild itself from the ground up. Despite immense disruption, it was the beginning of a new European identity. The end of Rome was not the end of civilization, but the start of something new. Europe was remaking itself, piece by piece. The people of the early Middle Ages didn't see themselves as living in darkness. The term Dark Ages was invented centuries later by Renaissance thinkers like Petrarch. They contrasted their own rebirth with what they saw as a period of decay and ignorance. This narrative was simple and powerful, serving as propaganda for the Renaissance and Enlightenment. Enlightenment thinkers blamed the era for religious superstition and intellectual stagnation. The label stuck, flattening 1,000 years of history into a single era of backwardness. It ignored the diversity and change across regions, from Islamic Spain to Charlemagne's empire. Today, historians reject the term, but it lingers in popular imagination. The Dark Ages is a myth that oversimplifies a complex and dynamic era. The early Middle Ages were a vital period for preserving knowledge, not losing it. Monasteries became centers of learning, where monks copied ancient texts by hand. They preserved works of Roman authors and church fathers, saving much of classical heritage. Monastic scholars like Bede produced influential works in history and science. Innovations like Carolingian minuscule made reading and copying texts easier. Knowledge was curated and prepared for future intellectual growth. Technological advances, especially in agriculture, transformed society. The heavy iron plough allowed farmers to cultivate new lands and increase food production. This agricultural revolution supported population growth and the return of towns. New legal codes blended Roman and Germanic traditions, shaping future European law. Romanesque architecture, with its massive stone churches, showcased engineering skill and faith. These achievements reveal a society building and innovating, not declining. The so-called dark centuries were full of creativity and progress. As Rome faded, new powers rose to shape Europe and the Mediterranean. The Franks, led by Charlemagne, built a vast empire and sparked the Carolingian Renaissance. Charlemagne's reign fused Germanic, Roman and Christian traditions, laying foundations for France and Germany. In the East, the Byzantine Empire preserved Roman law, economy and culture, thriving in Constantinople. Byzantines saw themselves as true Romans, heirs to the ancient empire. Meanwhile, the Islamic Caliphate emerged, conquering territory from Spain to India. Cities like Baghdad and Cordoba became centers of science, philosophy, and medicine. Islamic scholars preserved and expanded on Greek knowledge, making groundbreaking discoveries. While Europe rebuilt, the Islamic world led a golden age of learning. These three civilizations, Frankish, Byzantine, and Islamic, shaped the medieval world. Their interactions and rivalries defined the era's politics, culture, and knowledge. The early Middle Ages were a time of new empires and global connections. For most people, life in the early Middle Ages was rural and communal. Villages were clusters of simple homes surrounded by fields and forests. Daily life revolved around farming, with everyone contributing to the work. Peasants owed labor and crops to their lord in exchange for land and protection. The forest provided resources, but was also a place of danger and superstition. Folk beliefs blended with Christianity, shaping rural culture. Life was harsh. Famine, disease, and war were constant threats, yet villagers found meaning in community, faith, and seasonal celebrations. Despite hardship, their world was rich in tradition and resilience. The village was the heart of medieval society, grounded in the rhythms of the land. Survival depended on cooperation and enduring hope. The early Middle Ages were not a void but a foundation for modern Europe. Feudalism and new kingdoms shaped the map and governance of future nations. Monasteries preserved classical texts, linking ancient and modern worlds. The roots of universities and legal systems began in this era. Struggles between kings, nobles, and the church fostered ideas of rights and limits on power. Even the great cathedrals were feats of communal effort and innovation. This period bridged the ancient and modern, witnessing the end of one world and the birth of many. It was an age of hardship, but also of creativity and resilience. The so-called Dark Ages laid the groundwork for the world to come. History is not simply light or darkness. It's a tapestry, and the early Middle Ages are a vital thread.